Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of the Yonaguni Monument, Japan's underwater pyramid. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction. Not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In 1987, a diving instructor named Kihachiro Aratake was exploring the waters off the coast of Yonaguni, Japan's westernmost island, closer to Taiwan than to Okinawa, when he came across something extraordinary beneath the waves. A massive flat-topped structure of stepped terraces, right angles, and geometric formations cut from bedrock, lying at depths of 15 to 30 meters below the surface. The largest feature rises approximately 25 meters from the sea floor. It looked unmistakably like a stepped pyramid. The discovery ignited a debate that has continued for nearly 4 decades and shows no sign of resolution. Is the Yonaguni Monument a natural geological formation, the product of tectonic stress fracturing sandstone along its natural bedding planes? Or is it an ancient artificial structure, built when Yonaguni was above sea level, which would make it more than 10,000 years old? And the oldest known monument on Earth, the physical evidence is real. The interpretation divides experts as sharply as any controversy in archaeology. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the broader phenomenon of lost civilizations, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. The ocean has a long memory. As the last ice age ended around 12,000 years ago, sea levels worldwide rose by more than 120 meters, enough to drown entire coastal civilizations that may have flourished along shorelines that no longer exist. The continental shelves that now lie submerged beneath shallow coastal seas were once habitable land. River deltas, bays, and estuaries that today lie underwater were once the most attractive real estate on Earth, rich in resources, temperate in climate, and accessible by sea. If ancient peoples built their settlements where resources were most abundant, then much of the archaeological record of early civilization may be sitting on the ocean floor, invisible to conventional excavation. This is not speculation. Marine archaeologists have already found submerged ruins at dozens of locations worldwide, off the coasts of India, Japan, Cuba, and the Mediterranean islands. In some cases, these structures are clearly artificial: stone walls, carved steps, and rectilinear platforms that could not have formed naturally. The academic debate is not whether these structures exist, but what they mean. Were they built by unknown pre-flood cultures, or were they coastal settlements of known civilizations gradually abandoned as waters rose? The answer, in many cases, remains open. What oral traditions add to this picture is equally significant. Cultures living on or near the sea throughout the tropics and subtropics carry remarkably consistent flood narratives, stories of a great inundation that drowned an earlier world. These are not borrowed from one another through colonial contact. They predate European exploration. They appear to be independent memories of a shared catastrophe, the end of the last ice age, when the world coastlines changed forever and entire ways of life were drowned. The civilizations that built on those shores, if they existed, vanished beneath the waves. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades, and patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter, the core evidence surrounding the Yonaguni Monument. Japan's underwater pyramid is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The Yonaguni Monument is located off the southern coast of Yonaguni Island at depths between 5 and 30 meters below the current sea surface. The main structure is approximately 250 meters long, 25 meters wide, and 25 meters high, consisting of flat surfaces, steps, terraces, and what appear to be right-angled cuts and passageways through the rock. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the site would have been above sea level during the last glacial maximum, approximately 18,000 years ago, when sea levels were 120 meters lower. Even more conservatively, the depth of the shallowest features suggests the site was above water at some point before approximately 10,000 BC, predating any recognized ancient culture in the region. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. Japanese geologist Masaki Kimura of the University of the Ryukyus has studied the Yonaguni Monument extensively and concludes it is artificial, citing features he argues cannot form naturally. Parallel trenches, right-angle turns, a triangular pool, a twin megaliths, and what he interprets as a road or pathway running around the main structure. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, Boston University geologist Robert Schoch, who is known for arguing that the Sphinx is older than conventionally dated, visited Yonaguni and concluded that the monument is primarily a natural geological formation, though he acknowledged that some features may have been modified by human hands. Schoch's position represents the majority view among Western geologists. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of the sandstone geology of the Yonaguni region does produce naturally step deformations through fracturing along horizontal bedding planes and vertical joint sets. Similar formations occur elsewhere along the Ryukyu Islands. However, proponents of the artificial hypothesis argue that the regularity and combination of features at Yonaguni exceeds anything seen in purely natural formations. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. Smaller related features have been found nearby, including what Kimura describes as a stone stage, a stone column, a carved stone resembling a human face, and rock carvings resembling writing. If these features are artificial, they significantly strengthen the case for human modification of the main structure. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. Equally puzzling to investigators, the Jomon culture of Japan, which existed from approximately 14,000 to 300 BC, was far more sophisticated than its label of primitive hunter-gatherers suggests. They produced some of the world's oldest pottery and show evidence of settled communities. If any ancient Japanese culture was capable of megalithic construction, the Jomon are the most plausible candidates. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Yonaguni Monument, Japan's underwater pyramid. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that the Yonaguni Monument is entirely natural, a geological formation produced by the fracturing of sandstone along bedding planes and joint systems that creates stepped, angular features resembling construction. The human tendency to see intentional structure in angular natural formations explains why the site appears architectural. This is the position of most Western geologists who have examined the site. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence. But it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the monument is a natural geological formation that was partially modified by ancient human hands. The basic structure is natural, but some features, including the terraces, steps, and passageways, were shaped or enhanced by a culture living in the region when the site was above sea level. This hybrid interpretation attempts to reconcile the geological and archaeological evidence. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that the monument is entirely artificial, built by an unknown ancient culture before 10,000 BC, when the site was above sea level, and is the oldest known megalithic construction on Earth. If correct, it would require a fundamental revision of the timeline of human civilization in East Asia. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Yonaguni Monument, Japan's underwater pyramid, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes close examination of the monument's surface reveals tool marks and features that Kimura and his team argue are inconsistent with purely natural formation. Small holes drilled in rows, carvings too regular to be natural erosion, and a level flat surface over the main platform that would require deliberate preparation. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented comparison with natural sandstone formations elsewhere in the Ryukyu Islands shows that while stepped formations do occur naturally, the specific combination of features at Yonaguni, including right-angle turns in trenches, parallel walls, and the triangular pool, has not been documented in any purely natural context. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed the location of the monument at a point that would have been coastline during multiple periods of lower sea level is consistent with the pattern of all known ancient coastal construction. People build near water and provides circumstantial support for the artificial hypothesis. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Yonaguni Monument, Japan's underwater pyramid. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. The Yonaguni debate exemplifies a broader methodological challenge in underwater archaeology: how to distinguish natural geological formations from ancient human construction when the standard tools of excavation cannot easily be applied underwater. The answer to the Yonaguni question may require sediment core analysis from the surrounding seafloor, which could reveal whether the site was inhabited during periods of lower sea level. Until that analysis is done, the monument will continue to divide researchers. And in its ambiguity, it represents a broader truth. The submerged continental shelves of the world are largely unexamined, and what lies beneath the shallow seas of the Pacific may permanently change our understanding of ancient East Asian civilization. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Yonaguni Monument, Japan's underwater pyramid, from the historical record through the physical evidence, across competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Yonaguni ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.